I'm Myriam.
And I'm Elyse. Two friends bound by the love of books.
Taking on the world one chapter at a time. This is the Book Bound Besties podcast. Hey, Book Bound Besties! Welcome to your introduction to season 3 of the Book Bound Besties podcast, where we dive deep into your favorite books, have unhinged chats, and Elyse theorizes about what's to come because she has not read the whole book yet. Today, we are introducing the series we'll be covering, and it is...
From Blood and Ash!
Woo! I have been so excited to cover this series since I first read it over the Christmas break when I was away with my family on a beach vacation. I inhaled this book, I kid you not, in a day. Maybe 2.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it was really good. And then I did my utmost to draw out the rest of the series. There is the From Blood and Ash series, and there's a companion series called the Flesh and Fire series. And I couldn't even tell you which series I like best because they're both so good. And I've done my best to draw them out. But unfortunately, a few weeks ago, I got fully caught up. And now I have to wait till August, which is actually pretty soon once this episode gets released, for the last book in the Flesh and Fire series.
Is it the last?
Yep.
Oh, man.
I know. Very sad to say goodbye to those characters, but anyway, it'll be a while before you get there.
Yeah, for real.
If you want more Book Bound Besties content, be sure to follow along on TikTok and Instagram. We post funny clips from our episodes, some silly videos. It's a really fun corner of the internet that we've carved out for ourselves. Also, please, regardless of where you are listening to us, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, whatever, please head to Apple Podcasts and rate and review, but most importantly, leave a written review for the podcast. It's what really helps the algorithm and boosts this show to as many potential Book Bound Besties out there as possible. So we'd really appreciate it if you did that. And even though we're not going to have too much to talk about today in terms of inappropriate content, this is your content warning. There is, in this series, a lot of things that are not suitable for little ears. So be warned.
So before we get into it, we both finished Leather and Lark, which is the second installment in the Ruinous Love trilogy, which you guys heard us talk about. We adored the first one, Butcher and Blackbird, and the second one just came out, and we inhaled it. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on the second one?
I liked it. I will say, besties, that if you loved Butcher and Blackbird, it's a very different vibe. Mm-hmm. The story is a lot sadder and darker, but no less beautiful. Mm-hmm. Butcher and Blackbird just gave us this butterfly feeling and these warm fuzzies in a very unexpected way when you're reading a book about a serial killer. And Leather and Lark was just a little bit darker. Mm-hmm. It was honestly a true enemies to lovers, in my opinion, which also plays a role because a lot of the enemies to lovers that I've read, they're like in conflict or they may not like each other, but they don't actively hate each other the way Lachlan and Lark do, particularly Lark hating Lachlan. Mm-hmm. Lachlan kind of softens up on Lark pretty quickly. But yeah, I thought that their love story was almost more beautiful in a way because of all the darkness and everything that they overcame together than Sloane and Rowan's. Mm-hmm. But they're very difficult to compare because they are so different.
I agree. I think the first one, it was a very, I mean, it's about serial killers. So there's some like pretty horrific things in it, but the relationship is so like bubblegum in terms of like they're joking and it's cute and it's light and it's fluffy despite them both having a dark side. So there's those like dark moments. But in the second one, they both have a dark side and it's just like dark and broody pretty much throughout the whole thing. And I think they're just people who deal with their darkness differently than the first two characters. So we live in that mindset a little bit more. But I do really love their relationship.
Me too.
I think it's really beautiful.
I love a grumpy sunshine.
Yeah. And the love is just so pure. And I also adore that these two people who are kind of messed up just found each other and bring out a good side in each other. And I don't know. I enjoyed it, but for a very different reason. Like, it's just a very different vibe.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is with Sloane and Rowan, their story was over the course of 4 years or 3 years, depending on who you ask. So you have all of this time for their feelings to marinate and for them to grow more in love with one another over time. Whereas with Lark and Lachlan, their story actually takes place on a much, much shorter time frame. So I feel like a lot more had to happen emotionally for us to buy into their love story, which I did by the end.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, go read it. She's a Canadian author, Bryn Weaver.
Yeah.
We love her.
We do.
Trying to get her on the pod.
Working on it.
Yeah, exactly. So, besties, let's jump into season 3. And like we did for season 2, we're going to talk about some things that are going to be similar and some things that are going to be different. We're going to start with what's going to be a little different. First of all, we're going to cover 4 chapters instead of 5. Towards the end of season 2, as you know, if you've been listening along, the episodes got long.
Yeah.
So for our sake and yours, we're covering a little bit less.
Yes.
The next thing is that we are about to enter a new world, and we're going to be introduced to a lot of world building elements. So we decided that it would be a good idea to start every episode with a world building segment where we will summarize what we learned about the world in the chunk of chapters that we are covering. And I think that'll be really helpful for Elyse because when I was first introduced to this world, I was super confused. There's a lot of information. There's a lot that's purposefully not explained very well because the female main character is sheltered and doesn't really understand the world. What's great is that the world is opened up more and more as the series progresses and as the story progresses, which is what we love. We don't get that data dump that, for example, a lot of people complain about Crescent City 1. There's a huge data dump at the beginning, which is necessary. But as you're reading it, you're like, I don't understand what I am reading and whatever. And in the end, you can just kind of read it and move on. And the author will always reiterate what is important so that you understand by the end. But I personally prefer little breadcrumbs along the way that are digestible,
Yeah, I think,
and not the full meal at once,
I think I would agree with that, especially, when it comes to world building. It's just easier to wrap your head around bits of information and then adding on to it.
Exactly.
But we will be tracking it all for you guys.
We are also going to add a few fun twists that we've been talking about. Three running tallies as of season 3. Our main character, Poppy, is known for asking many, many questions. So we're going to keep a running tally of how many questions she asks. Our male main character has dimples that are called out quite a bit. So we're going to have a running tally on his dimples. And we often debate our levels of reading comprehension. So we thought it'd be really funny to have a running tally of Elise's reading comprehension versus mine.
Yeah, so every time we mess up, we're going to score a point, basically.
Basically.
Points we don't want, but anyway.
Exactly. I mean, spoiler alert, I'll probably lose. But that's fine. I just thought it would be funny.
Yeah.
Little addition to the season.
Change it up. Season 3.
Exactly. Yeah. Another little change. This is the last little change. And I'm calling them little changes. They're varying sizes of change. Whatever. Is that because we're covering an even number of chapters, I will be responsible for recapping 2 chapters an episode, and Elyse will be responsible for recapping 2 chapters an episode. And we think this could be fun because it'll allow for one person to be more reactive than the other. And then for you, besties, you'll also get to have a little bit of a different perspective. I've been in the driver's seat when it comes to recaps while we did the Empyrean series, and now we can get a little bit of Elyse flavor,
Yeah. That's the end of the changes. Don't worry, a lot of things are still going to stay the same. I still haven't read the book. I'm still going to be reading it as we go, so those 4 chapters at a time. We will still summarize a given chunk of chapters the way we've been doing. We're going to discuss whether we think there's any important info, whether there's any foreshadowing, what we think the vibe of the chapter is and how it makes us feel. So we're still keeping, the content is still the same. It's just the structure is going to be a little different, basically. We're still keeping our awards. We're still going to do funniest, most romantic, and spiciest. But as a honorary award, we also wanted to introduce the darkest line. So I don't know if it's going to be for every chapter, but apparently I have been told this book is quite dark. So I'm assuming we're going to have awards for darkest line sprinkled out throughout the seasons as well.
All right. Well, that is the little recap we have in terms of what to expect for season 3. Now we can jump into actually talking about the book. And the most important question is, Elyse, what have you heard about From Blood and Ash?
Well, very little, to be honest, because again, we have kind of had the idea for a while to jump into this series. So I have been avoiding a lot of things. Like I just said, I've heard it's dark. I know the main character, Poppy, is a bride, I think, or of some sort. She is seen at one point as a bride. And I think it's about vampires, but I don't know if vampire is the right term. But I think there's some sort of vampire-like creature in them. That is literally all I know.
Okay. I did tell you it is spicier than probably anything you've read.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Spicier than the spice scenes in Leather and Lark and...
Oh, no.
Yeah, because we go there, guys.
No. Okay, no. It is not spicier than Leather and Lark, but it is spicier than any of the romantasy you've read.
Okay.
In the frequency of spice, not necessarily
right, in the scenes, in the
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. All right, well, Elyse knows next to nothing about this book, so let's read the synopsis to her, shall we?
Okay.
So the synopsis is broken down into 3 sections. A maiden, a duty, and a kingdom, okay?
Okay.
A maiden. Chosen from birth to usher in a new era, Poppy's life has never been her own. The life of the maiden is solitary, never to be touched, never to be looked upon, never to be spoken to, never to experience pleasure. Waiting for the day of her ascension, she would rather be with the guards fighting back the evil that took her family than preparing to be found worthy by the gods. But the choice has never been hers. A duty. The entire kingdom's future rests on Poppy's shoulders, something she's not even quite sure she wants for herself, because a maiden has a heart and a soul and a longing. And when Hawk, a golden-eyed guard, honor-bound to ensure her ascension, enters her life, destiny and duty become tangled with desire and need. He incites her anger, makes her question everything she believes in, and tempts her with the forbidden. A kingdom. Forsaken by the gods and feared by mortals, a fallen kingdom is rising once more, determined to take back what they believe is theirs through violence and vengeance. And as the shadow of those cursed draws closer, the line between what is forbidden and what is right becomes blurred. Poppy is not only on the verge of losing her heart and being found unworthy by the gods, but also her life, when every blood-soaked thread that holds her world together begins to unravel.
Okay. All right. I mean, I love, like, plot twisting, challenging everything you believe kind of storyline, so I'm excited for that. It does give a little bit like religious virginal vibes.
Yep.
So I'm not a big fan of that, but I'm curious and open to see where that goes. Excited
Have
to
faith. Never fear. JLA's got you.
I'm excited to see where it goes.
She's thick.
Yeah, but
the writing is big.
When we were trying to decide, like, how many chapters do we do, whatever, that was one of the things that Myriam was like, it's really big writing. So I think 4 chapters should be good.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
So besties, that's pretty much it for our intro to season 3. Like we said, next season we're covering From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So set new episodes to download so that you can be sure to get them as soon as they come out. And if you haven't gotten your hands on a copy of From Blood and Ash yet, head to our Amazon storefront because it's a great way to support the show.
Yeah.
For next week, please read chapters 1 to 4 of From Blood and Ash. We are going to dive right in. We are not taking a break. We are full steam ahead. Thank you so much for listening. Please rate this podcast and leave us a review. It'll help other people find us if you haven't already. Like I just said, we encourage you to set new episodes to download. You can follow us on Instagram at Book Bound Pod and on TikTok at Book Bound Besties. Please tag us in your reactions to what we're covering for season 3. We would love to see who is excited to read the series along with us and dive deep into it. As far as we've seen on the internet, nobody has done it so far.
Yeah, so spread the word. Let's grow the bestie community.
Absolutely. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please email us at bookboundpod@gmail.com. Let's get to reading.